Hello, my name is Mr. Cube7. Today I'll be reviewing the Half-Life series. In case you don't know, Half-Life is a video game series developed by Valve and has been quite successful since its initial release in 1998. So the first entry was the original Half-Life, and I'm just going to talk about my experience playing the game, how I enjoyed it. Not necessarily which was like the best, because I mean, I don't know, I'm not some game review person. I'm not a critic. I had a lot of fun playing the original Half-Life, even though like it's from the 90s, the graphics are quite old, quite dated, don't look the greatest. I still thought it was lots of fun to play. I thought it had a pretty solid plot, and like nothing ever really felt boring in that game. Everything was like new and like, ooh, this is cool. It had lots of different weapons, and it was a shooter and a story, and I enjoyed it. And if I were to rate it on a like S tier, A, B, C, D, I would rate the original Half-Life as an A. It was a very solid game. I played in, I believe, 2020 was when I, played Half-Life. And even in 2020, which is, 22 years after the game launched, it was still fun to play. It wasn't boring at all. And I would recommend it if you haven't played Half-Life. The next game in the series, Opposing Force, it was a smaller game. Instead of playing as Gordon Freeman, you play as Commander Shepard, I believe his name was, and you play from like the enemy's point of view. And it was fun. I enjoyed playing it. It wasn't as fun as Half-Life, and it was a lot shorter. It was a bit different, and you didn't really have as many like weapons as the original Half-Life. But I still thought it was fun to play, and I would recommend playing it, even though, I mean, if you're not really, like, I played through all the games, because I wanted to play the entire franchise, but if you, I mean, it isn't really necessary the overall plot. It's just sort of like a nice extra, sort of like, I guess, what a DLC would be today. Just a different story. Half-Life Blue Shift is the same way. You play as Barney, a police officer at Black Mesa. And again, it's like Opposing Force. It's a short story. You're playing as a different character from a different point of view. Not as many weapons. Not as exciting as the original Half-Life. Again, feels more like a DLC, but still, in my opinion, I had fun playing it. I would recommend it, though. I mean, as I said with Opposing Force, like, it's not, you don't need to play it if you're just trying to get the main story of like Gordon Freeman. And then there's Half-Life Decay, which Half-Life Decay was only on the PS2, and it's a co-op Half-Life game. And I thought this one was really interesting, because, and as for how I played it, I didn't actually play it on the PS2. Somebody made a mod for PC, so I played the PC mod, and then I played with one of my friends. We played through the entire campaign in one go. And playing Half-Life Decay, the gameplay as like a co-op Half-Life game was not that fun. I felt like it's actually made the experience worse of having co-op instead of if I just played it by myself. But the story was what I found good. The story is you're playing as the two scientists, and it's the events that take place like right before the incident of Half-Life, like with the alien crystal thing and it exploding or whatever and opening a portal to Zen, and all the aliens come in, and all the events of Half-Life happen. But yeah, you're playing as the two scientists that actually send the crystal up to him, and you get to meet the scientist that actually becomes a villain in Half-Life 2, and I thought that was pretty cool. Because at the time, like seeing, I don't remember his name, but the evil scientist, like I had no clue. I was like, okay, this is him. It's the dude in the wheelchair. Then I go into Half-Life 2, I'm like, oh, dang. So, yeah, Decay actually does contribute to the story of Half-Life. It's kind of like a prequel in a way, but I wouldn't really recommend it, because one, you have to have a friend to play it, or you have to just, you can swap between the characters, but I find that would be even worse. And two, it's like, I don't know, gameplay wise, I was not very impressed. So next, that brings us to Half-Life Source. Half-Life Source is just the original Half-Life, but running on the Source engine. So some of the graphics look nicer, like water looks nicer. There's some, there's ragdoll physics. You know, the weapons look a bit updated. And there's some glitches, and that's what a lot of people I've heard talk about. Is just like, oh, Half-Life Source is just Half-Life, but with lots of glitches. And I mean, I only really encountered 2 annoying glitches. And I mean, they were annoying, but other than that, I didn't find any problems. And you know, Half-Life Source, it was fun playing through Half-Life again, but you know, seeing it a little bit nicer looking. But honestly, if you're just going for the Half-Life story, I would just skip Half-Life Source. It contributes no plot relevance since it's just like a remake, and you know, like it's just not, if you like, you're pretty much just playing Half-Life twice, which for me, I enjoyed that, but you know, most people are like, nah, screw that. So that brings us to Half-Life 2. Now moving on to the Half-Life 2 parts. Half-Life 2 was very fun to play. The story was good. You know, new weapons. It's, you know, a lot nicer looking since it's a lot newer. You know, new characters, you know, entirely new scenery. And overall, just a pretty good game. You know, pretty solid story progression, characters, you know, all that jazz. It's like Half-Life. It's a full game, and it's, you know, it's fun to play. They added cars, or like it's a dune buggy. I think they have like this boat thing that's pretty cool. You know, new elements that made the game fun to play. Next is Half-Life 2 Deathmatch. It's Half-Life, but like multiplayer. I didn't think it was that good. I didn't think it was great. Yeah, like, I don't know. I just feel like Half-Life and multiplayer, just in general, are just not good ideas. Because, like, I hopped on some lobbies and played for about half an hour Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, and it was just like, bro, this is just boring. There's also Half-Life 2 Deathmatch Source, which I don't even know what that is. Like, I played it too. I don't even know what the difference between Half-Life Deathmatch and Half-Life Deathmatch Source is. Half-Life 2 Deathmatch and Deathmatch Source. But yeah, they're the two multiplayer games. I wouldn't recommend them. I mean, I just say it isn't worth your time. Oh, I forgot to rate these. I rated the first one, just forgot about it. Alright, so opposing for some blue shift, I would put as C, because you know, they're average, they're like DLCs. Decay I would put as a D, because I mean, the story was cool, but the gameplay was just annoying. Half-Life Source I would put as a D as well, just because it's just like a remake in the Source engine. Half-Life 2 I would put as A, along with Half-Life. The Deathmatch and Deathmatch Source I would also put in D, because, you know, I just did not find them worth playing or putting any, you know, time into. And that brings us to Half-Life 2 Lost Coast. Now, Half-Life 2 Lost Coast is an interesting game. I did a full run through it on my YouTube channel. It is Half-Life, but it's Half-Life 2, but this game only exists as a tech demo for HDR, which, if you don't know what HDR is, it's like, imagine pretty colors. Like, you walk into, you know, your favorite electronics reseller and you see those, you know, big TVs with the bright, vibrant colors. It's like, that's HDR. It makes the colors pop and look nice. And Half-Life 2 Lost Coast was just a game demonstrating what Half-Life would look like with HDR. So it does serve like a tiny bit of plot relevance. I mean, you're on this island, and I mean, it doesn't really contribute anything to the main story. It's just like, I would imagine if I were to describe it in like a different game, I'd say it's like a side mission. Like, you know, the stories, you just go and kill some Covenant on this island, and then that's it. You know, the entire game takes like 15 minutes. Because it was a tech demo, but I found it fun to play. You know, there's some charm to me at least about it being that short. So if I were to put it somewhere, I put it as C with the other more DLC like Opposing Force and Blue Shift. And I know a lot of people, you know, would just skip Lost Coast because it serves no plot relevance, and you know, it's like, why would I even play this? But I don't know, I found it fun. Half-Life 2 Episode 1. Now, this is a continuation of Half-Life 2, in case you couldn't tell. I would rate this game, well, I don't know. Okay, so Half-Life 2 is great, and then Episode 1, I just felt like, I don't know, the plot wasn't bad, the gameplay wasn't bad, like, it wasn't bad, but I just felt sort of bored in a way, because, like, it's very much like Half-Life 2, because, you know, it's a continuation, but it's like, there's not really any new gameplay elements, or like, not very many, and it's like, yeah, it's still continuing the plot, but at that point, I kind of lost interest in the plot. Like, okay, I played Half-Life, I played Half-Life 2, I kind of just want to go play a different game now. I don't really want to play Episode 1 and Episode 2. Well, I wanted to play them, but I got to Episode 1, and I'm like, man, the plot just, also the story, like, what the actual plot was just really not that interesting to me. Like, yeah, it's eventful and stuff, but it's like, I was just kind of getting bored of it. So I would place Half-Life 2 Episode 1 in B tier, and Half-Life 2 Episode 2 was the last Half-Life game for a while. It continues the plot of Half-Life 2 Episode 1, you know, continuing the story. And this, I mean, it's pretty much the same as Episode 1. I was kind of bored of the plot, wasn't really interested that much anymore, there wasn't really any new gameplay elements. It was, you know, pretty much the same as Half-Life 2. And, you know, I just kind of, like, went through it. I went through it and I played the whole game, but I mean, I did not have as much fun as Half-Life 2 or Half-Life. Because, you know, it was all, you know, like, I've played this before, it's just a different story, which I'm not even that interested in the story. So I put it in B tier along with Episode 1. Because I wouldn't say they're good games, it's just personally, I just kind of got bored of Half-Life at that point. I'm like, okay, I don't feel like I want to continue with the plot. And then, fast forward quite a bit of time, because I stopped making Half-Life games, we had Half-Life Alyx, which is a VR title, which is very interesting. Now, I have a Valve Index, which is Valve's VR headset, and Valve made Half-Life, so the Index came bundled with Half-Life Alyx. So I played Half-Life Alyx, and it takes place in between the events of Half-Life and Half-Life 2. And it's a VR title, and my review of it, I think it's a really good game. The story's very solid, the gameplay's pretty solid, but the biggest problem I have with it is that it's in VR. And it's not like the VR experience, like the VR itself is bad, like it's janky or anything. It's just that playing in VR, like I played a lot of Beat Saber, and I can play Beat Saber for hours and be fine. Like my feet will start to hurt after a while, but you know, like I can keep on going. For some reason, when I was playing through Half-Life Alyx, I could not play that game for longer than like maybe an hour at a time without like just, I don't know, just feeling tired. Not like physically tired, but like my head was just like, stop playing this game. I'm hurting from playing this game, and I don't know why. but that kind of made it not fun. Again, the plot was good, you know, and then the gameplay was good. It was well thought out. It also felt like Half-Life Alyx goes on for like forever. I don't know, I just felt like it was a drag playing through it. And, like, it felt like a chore. Like, oh, I gotta go play Half-Life Alyx so I can finish up the Half-Life series. Like, that was my mentality. But I would recommend it. I'd say it's a good game. It's just, for me, I just found the VR aspect tiring, and I think I'm like the only one on that. But also another thing, you're kind of limited on weapons. I could see why, because it wouldn't really make sense to have like a ton of weapons in VR. They limit it down to the pistol, the shotgun, and the assault rifle. So that was another thing, so you don't really have many weapons to choose from. And also, like, upgrading weapons, I don't know. I felt like upgrading weapons was kind of weird. You know, like, I never saw it in Half-Life before. You have to go around looking for resin and stuff. Alright, so I'd rate Half-Life Alyx. I'd rate an A with Half-Life and Half-Life 2, because if you look at it from, like, not my personal view, it's a really good game. You know, it's a solid AAA VR title, and a good return to Half-Life with like a new twist. So those are all the Half-Life games from Valve, but I'm going to talk about one more, and this one more is my favorite, and it's called Black Mesa. Now, in case you haven't played Half-Life, but you're still listening for some reason, or watching, Black Mesa is the facility where the events of Half-Life, like the setting where Half-Life 1 takes place, where the whole incident happens. Black Mesa is also the title of the fan-made, like, remaster of Half-Life. So think like Half-Life Source, but way better. You know, it was done by a group called Crowbar Collective, and it originally started out as a mod, I believe, and now it's its own title. And it is fantastic. It took like, in my opinion, this is what Half-Life would look like if it got released like in today's day and age, or whenever Black Mesa released. Like, the graphics are stunning, the music's improved, like everything's just better, like a more updated, better version. And then I was going along and I was having a fun time, and then I got the Zen. And in the original Half-Life, Zen does not look very pretty. It looks pretty ugly. But in Black Mesa, it is just beautiful. It is gorgeous. And then the music too. The music is also just so good. And they changed Zen so it's even more fun too, with like the platforms that you jump, like you boost across and whatever. Like, they made Zen so much better than the original. It's so nice to see it happening. And the footage that is in the background is Zen from Black Mesa. So this is me playing Black Mesa, and you can see what Zen looks like. And if I were to rate Black Mesa, I would rate Black Mesa S tier, because out of all the Valve Half-Life games, the original Half-Life is my favorite. So my favorite is already the original Half-Life, and then Black Mesa comes and then just like blows Half-Life away. So I would put Black Mesa at S tier. And I would say, if you're gonna say I'm only gonna play one, you know, Half-Life game, I would say play Black Mesa above all else. I know a lot of people would probably say like Half-Life 2, but Black Mesa to me is just phenomenal. Like, such a great game. I would highly recommend it to anybody that wants to, you know, play some Half-Life or something. So that's my review of the Half-Life series. Thanks for watching. I like Half-Life, in case you couldn't tell, and bye.